Welcome back to Harbaugh. Today, the latest effort to stop the oil spill in the Gulf begins with a dome-like contraption making its way to this site. Has BP done enough? U.S. Congressman Ed Markey met with executives of the oil industry yesterday. Congressman Markey, what do you make of BP's in terms of their discipline, their backup systems, their training, their safety approach? Generally, did they take the full responsibility before this happened to make sure it didn't happen, even if it did?
No, I think that they were operating under an assumption that an accident could not happen. When I had executives before our committee yesterday, they made it clear to us that they never thought the rig could ever sink. When they were making an application to drill in this location, they said that the total amount of any spill would only be 5,000 barrels in any eventuality. We're now seeing 5,000 barrels per day. And so it's clear that BP never anticipated that a worst-case scenario could, in fact, be created. And that kind of boosterism leads to complacency, and complacency leads to disaster. And that's what we see. Now BP is taking steps to limit the damage, but a lot of this could have been avoided if they had put in place proper safety measures right from the get-go, defense in depth, one system after another that could have avoided this ever occurring in the first place.
In the last administration, which put in place apparently a lot of these people that are regulators, these headless nails that are in there, supposedly regulating the oil industry, had a role. They got in there because Cheney was in there with his secret task force that met at the White House. We never found out who in the oil industry was involved. To what extent is the current regulatory regime that governs people like BP in place because of the previous administration, which was run by Cheney, based upon the Halliburton lifestyle that he came from?
Well, the Clinton administration recommended, for example, that an acoustical trigger that would have made it possible to shut down the well by remote control be installed as an essential piece of equipment. But when the Bush-Cheney administration took over, they made a determination that it was too costly to build in that extra safety precaution. And again, when there is an assumption that an accident cannot occur, $500,000, which is what that acoustical trigger would have cost, seems very expensive. But when 5,000 barrels of oil per day are spilling out into the Gulf, destroying people's livelihoods, it doesn't seem that costly at all. And so that was the ethos that existed inside the Bush-Cheney era, and I'm afraid we're now living with the consequences of those assumptions.
Let me talk to you about what's happening today. We're getting reports that BP's out there hiring en masse, basically, all kinds of shrimp boat operators, fishermen, and people like that, hiring them on a sort of a per diem basis right now and getting them to sign off any possible suit against the company. In other words, what looks like a labor pickup, they're hiring people. They're basically going around the Gulf hiring people and getting them to sign letters that says, I won't sue because of my loss of business. Do you have any sense that's going on?
Well, you know, these people are all victims. They could lose their livelihoods, their income for this year could just be destroyed, and they're being asked to then sign waivers. The victims are. Instead of BP saying, look, we made $6 billion in the first 3 months of this year, there is no price that we are not willing to pay in order to ensure that these people are made whole. We have the money, we have a moral obligation. Instead, by asking them to sign waivers, legal liability waivers, it just says that they still don't get it. They have a responsibility. They said an accident could not occur. They should just basically make a commitment that money is no object. We will take care of these people because they're desperate. Too many people are too desperate right now. They will sign anything if they have to. They should never be forced to make that kind of a choice.
What would you recommend to President Obama right now in terms of offshore drilling? Would you say cool it in terms of your shift toward allowing that as part of a compromise?
I would say that we need to have a comprehensive review of what went wrong. as we did after 3 Mile Island when President Jimmy Carter created the Kemeny Commission, the president of Dartmouth, to do a complete evaluation so that going forward there would be a whole set of safety procedures that would minimize the likelihood that there would ever be a recurrence. I think we will have to do the same thing with a blue ribbon panel, but I think that if you look down at the Gulf, it's likely that there will continue to be drilling, but we have an obligation to make sure that we do so in a way that does not endanger people's lives or their livelihoods, and that innocent victims not be created, which is, I think, what is going to happen if our prayers are not answered over in Florida and in other parts of this country.
Okay, thank you very much, U.S. Congressman Ed Markey of Massachusetts. Up next, from the oil spill in the Gulf to the failed New York, or actually Times Square car bomb, the Blame Obama First crowd is desperate, looking for ways to blame the president. How far will they go? By the way, they're pretty desperate. They're blaming him, saying he's out to kill the coal industry by blowing up oil rigs. I mean, what they're claiming is insane. But in 1 minute, is President Obama finally enjoying a bump in the polls over health care? New numbers in 60 seconds. This is Hardball, only on MSNBC.